The music was too loud that night, loud enough to hide 1,000 mistakes. If I'd known that one impulsive kiss would rewrite my entire life, I might have run sooner. The rooftop of the record label shimmered with champagne light and city haze. People laughed, glasses clinked. Someone's new single blasted over the speakers. But I wasn't listening. My pulse was sprinting because Evan Monroe, the man every rookie musician dreamed of working with, was walking toward me through the crowd like a scene unfolding in slow motion. I'd spent 3 months writing demo hooks for him, praying he'd even notice. And when he finally did, he looked at me the way men look at songs they're afraid to ruin, reverently, cautiously, almost like I mattered. That night, his eyes said things his mouth didn't dare. And then, before reason could intervene, he kissed me. The air went white. The party vanished. For one fragile second, there was only him, the warmth of his mouth, the taste of alcohol and mint, the pulse beneath his skin that I could feel like my own. Then someone gasped. Camera flash. The world came rushing back. And I ran. That was 3 years ago, and every sleepless night since then I've replayed it, his hand gripping my wrist, my name cracking from his lips, the chaos in his eyes. I told myself leaving was self-defense. He was a legend. I was just a ghost in his studio. Now, standing in front of him again, I realize ghosts can bleed. The coffee shop door creaked as I stepped in, sunlight spilling across the tiled floor. Evan sat in the corner booth, dressed in black, his posture too straight, too rehearsed. The kind of man who'd rather drown than admit he's broken. He didn't notice me at first. His eyes were glued to the small boy playing with the sugar packets on the table, my son. Our son. The same honey-brown irises. The same tiny dimple when he smiled. And when Evan finally looked up, his expression froze like a song cut mid-note. Noah, he whispered, voice splintering. My throat went dry. Hey, Evan. He blinked, like the word hurt him. You disappeared. Yeah, I said softly. I got pretty good at that. There was a silence that made the room shrink around us. The hum of conversation faded. The sound of the espresso machine dulled. The only thing I could hear was my son's quiet laughter and Evan's unsteady breathing. I hadn't planned to let him see the boy. I hadn't planned any of this. But when our paths crossed at the music festival, him headlining, me ghostwriting under a pseudonym, fate didn't ask for permission. He looked older. The sharp arrogance from back then was gone, replaced by something heavier, regret maybe, or exhaustion. He reached for the cup in front of him, missed it slightly and muttered, "He has my eyes." I almost laughed, but it came out shaky. Yeah, genetics can be cruel. He swallowed hard. You should have told me. I met his gaze. And what would you have done, Evan? Announced to the press that the man you kissed at your party had your kid? You couldn't even admit you liked me. His jaw tightened. The same defensive instinct I used to hate, the one that built walls instead of bridges. I wasn't ready, he said finally. I know, I murmured. That's why I left. He exhaled sharply, like every word hurt. 3 years, Noah. I thought I imagined you. I tried to find you. I stared at the coffee swirling in my cup. You looked in the wrong places. Then, a small voice interrupted us. Daddy, can I have the blue cookie? Evan's eyes darted to the boy. The word daddy hung in the air like a live wire. My son wasn't looking at me, he was looking at him. I froze. He means, but before I could finish, Evan smiled at him gently, carefully, and said, Of course you can. That night, after I put the boy to sleep in the small Airbnb we were renting for the festival, Evan showed up outside the door. He didn't say a word, just stood there under the porch light, rain pooling around his shoes. You shouldn't be here, I said, heart pounding. He stepped closer, voice low. Neither should you, but here we are. For a moment, I almost slammed the door, but something in his eyes stopped me, that old pull, the one I swore I'd buried, the one that remembered how it felt to be seen by him. Why now, Evan? I asked. You've got awards, money, everything you wanted. Why come back? He hesitated, then said, Because none of it sounds like music anymore. I didn't know how to answer. Maybe because part of me had been living in silence too. He looked past me, to the dim hallway where my son slept. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," he said. "Just a chance to know him. And maybe someday you." I wanted to tell him no to protect the fragile life I'd built. But my heart betrayed me first. It remembered the boy on the rooftop 3 years ago. The one who kissed me like he was falling and didn't care where he'd land. And maybe, just maybe, we were still falling. Outside, thunder rumbled over Los Angeles. The rain began to pour thick, relentless, cleansing. When I finally opened the door wider, his breath hitched, as if he hadn't expected mercy. "Come in," I said quietly, and as he stepped inside, I realized something terrifying and beautiful. Forgiveness isn't a clean slate. It's a song we keep rewriting until it finally sounds right. The rain didn't stop that night. It whispered against the windows, 1,000 tiny apologies neither of us knew how to say. Evan stood in the doorway, his clothes dripping, the sharp lines of his face softened by exhaustion. I handed him a towel, pretending not to notice my hands trembling. He took it, our fingers brushing just enough contact to make my pulse stutter. "Thanks," he murmured. His voice was low, careful, as if afraid to wake the past. I nodded, stepping back. "You can sit." He looked around the small Airbnb pale walls, half-packed suitcases, a few toys scattered on the floor. It wasn't much, but it was home for now. His gaze landed on the couch, then on the framed photo beside it, me and my son at the park, both laughing, sunlight pouring over us like gold. I saw the way his throat tightened. "You named him Liam," he said quietly. I froze. "How did you?" He gave a faint smile. "It's written on his backpack, right? The tiny blue one by the door." I hadn't even noticed. I looked away, heat rising in my chest. "He's 3. He likes dinosaurs, hates carrots, and can't sleep without that stupid stuffed whale." Evan's eyes softened. "Sounds like me." Despite everything, I almost smiled. "You still hate carrots?" He laughed under his breath. "Some things never change." Then silence again, heavy, stretching between us like a rope we didn't dare pull. Finally, he spoke. "Why didn't you tell me, Noah? About him?" I took a deep breath, steadying my voice. "Because you were untouchable. Because you lived in a world where everything was spotlight and rumor, and I was just another melody you'd forget by morning." He flinched. "That's not fair." "Maybe not, but it's true." Evan rubbed his temples, eyes closing. "You think I didn't care?" "I think you cared until it got complicated," I said. "And when it did, you let me walk out that door." He opened his mouth, then closed it again. For once, he didn't have the perfect line, the polished producer's control. Just a man, lost in regret. "I tried to find you," he said again. "After the label party, after the tabloids. I went to your apartment, it was empty. I called your friends. You vanished." "I had to," I said softly. "I didn't know who to trust. I didn't even know if I could trust myself." He looked at me, raw and desperate. "And all this time, you've been raising him alone?" "Yes." He exhaled, leaning back against the couch, hands clasped between his knees. The silence stretched until he said, "You're incredible, Noah." I almost laughed. "Don't romanticize survival, Evan. It wasn't beautiful." His eyes met mine. "Maybe not, but you made something good out of it. That's more than I did." We stayed like that for a while, two ghosts sitting in the echo of what we used to be. Then, from down the hall, a soft voice called, "Papa!" Evan froze. I turned toward the sound. Liam stood in the doorway, rubbing his eyes, hair a tangle of soft curls. His little feet padded across the floor until he stopped in front of me. "Bad dream?" I asked, crouching down. He nodded, then looked up at Evan. "Who's that?" Evan hesitated, caught between truth and fear. "This is Evan," I said gently. "He's a friend." Liam blinked, curious. "You have the same eyes as me." Evan's lips parted. "Yeah," he said quietly. "Guess we do." The boy smiled, then crawled up beside him on the couch like it was the most natural thing in the world. I stood there, watching as Evan carefully tucked the blanket around him. It was surreal, like seeing two halves of a song finally play in harmony. Liam yawned, head resting against Evan's arm. You make music? Evan nodded. I try to. You make lullabies? Faint smile. Not yet. Liam thought about that for a second, then said, You should. Evan looked up at me, and in that moment, I saw it, the fragile, terrified hope of a man who didn't think he deserved a second chance. After Liam fell asleep again, Evan stood in the doorway, watching me tuck him in. You're good with him, I whispered. He's easy to love, Evan said. My heart clenched. You missed a lot. He nodded, guilt flickering in his eyes. I know, and I can't fix that. But if you let me, I'll try not to miss anything else. I swallowed. It's not that simple. I know, he said again, but I'm still asking. The next morning, the rain had stopped. The sky was washed clean, pale blue stretching endlessly above Los Angeles. Evan was in the kitchen when I woke, making pancakes like he used to back when we'd stay late in the studio mixing syrup with coffee, humming off key. The smell hit me before I saw him, and something in my chest cracked open. You're early, I said, half teasing. He turned, spatula in hand, hair messy, eyes softer than I remembered. Couldn't sleep. You have a mansion and you still came here to burn pancakes? He grinned. Guess I miss terrible coffee and bad company. I laughed before I could stop myself. God, it was easy, too easy. Liam bounded in, barefoot and bright-eyed. Pancakes, he shouted. Evan flipped one onto his plate, smiling. Special order, Chef Liam. The boy giggled, syrup already on his chin. You're funny. I try, Evan said, and just like that, the three of us sat at that tiny kitchen table, sunlight pouring through the blinds, the smell of sugar and hope in the air. For a few perfect minutes, it felt like a family. Later that day, Evan drove us to the festival. He was performing the closing set, a charity concert that drew half of Hollywood. I hadn't planned to go, but he'd insisted. Just come, he said, as my friend, or whatever you want to call it. I didn't answer, but I went anyway. Maybe I needed to see who he was now, the man the world adored versus the one who once whispered my name like a confession. The backstage area buzzed with sound engineers and camera crews. Evan slipped easily into the chaos, shaking hands, giving cues, his natural habitat. Yet every few minutes his eyes found me. When the lights dimmed, he stepped onto the stage, mic in hand. The crowd roared. He looked out over the sea of faces, then said, Before I start, I want to play something new. It's not on the set list. Personal. My heart stopped. He turned toward the band, nodded once. The lights softened to amber. The melody began slow, tender, haunting. A piano, a heartbeat of drums, then his voice low and cracked around the edges. It was a song I'd written 3 years ago. The demo I'd left in his studio before disappearing. The one I'd written for him. I felt my breath catch. He'd kept it. But he wasn't just performing it, he'd rewritten it. There were new verses, new pain, and one line that wasn't mine. If love is a crime, then I'm serving time for a kiss I can't undo. The crowd swayed, unaware of the story behind the song. But I knew. Every lyric was an apology. Every chord, a confession. By the time he finished, the entire arena was silent. He looked up, straight at me, and even with thousands of people watching, it felt like we were alone again, two broken notes trying to find the same key. That night, after the show, I found him backstage, still catching his breath. That was reckless, I said, half smiling, half scared. He laughed softly. Maybe, but I've spent 3 years being careful, Noah. It didn't make me happy. I wanted to argue, but the words wouldn't come. He took a step closer, eyes searching mine. What do I have to do for you to believe me? Maybe stop making grand gestures, I said. Start showing up. I can do that. Every day. Every damn day. For a long moment we just stood there, the air thick with unsaid things. Then someone called his name from across the stage, and the moment broke. But before he left, he reached out, fingers brushing mine. Don't disappear again, he whispered. I didn't promise, But I didn't walk away either. Weeks passed. Evan started visiting first just to see Liam, then sometimes to stay for dinner. The rhythm of our lives shifted, careful but steady. He'd show up with groceries, with toys, with stories from the studio. Liam adored him instantly, always asking when Evan with the funny hair was coming back. And slowly I started to let him in. One evening, after Liam fell asleep, we sat on the porch, watching the city lights flicker below. Evan sipped his beer. You know, I used to think success meant never needing anyone. Yeah? How's that working out for you? He smiled. Terribly. Turns out I needed you. I just didn't know how to say it. I looked at him, really looked at the man who'd built empires and broken hearts, sitting barefoot on my porch, vulnerable and real. You're saying all the right things now, I said. That's the thing, he replied. For once, I mean them. A few days later, I got a call from his manager. A gossip magazine had gotten wind of something. Photos of us at the concert. A shot of Evan carrying Liam. The story was already spreading. Evan Monroe's secret family. My stomach dropped. When Evan arrived that night, I held up the phone. You should have told me. He frowned. Told you what? That they'd find out. That they'd drag Liam into the circus. I didn't know, he said quickly. I swear. I didn't leak it. Doesn't matter. It's out now. He stepped closer. Noah. I can't do this again, Evan. I can't have the world dissecting us like gossip. His voice cracked. I'll protect you. Both of you. You can't even protect yourself from them. The silence that followed was brutal. Finally, he said, Let me fix it. You can't fix everything with a song, I whispered. He looked at me for a long time, eyes glistening. Maybe not, but I can try with love. And before I could react, he leaned forward and kissed me, not desperate, not hungry, just certain, like he'd finally stopped running from what he wanted. For a moment, I didn't resist. The taste of him, the warmth, the memory, it all came rushing back. Then I pulled away. You can't kiss your way out of this, Evan. I know, he said softly, but maybe I can start there. The next morning, his statement hit the media. He didn't deny it, didn't hide. He told the truth. He told them about the party, about the kiss, about me, about how fear made him run, and how love brought him back. I watched it unfold online, heart in my throat. It should have scared me, the exposure, the noise. But when I looked at the photo they'd used him holding Liam, both of them laughing, I didn't feel fear. I felt something dangerously close to peace. That evening, my phone buzzed. Evan, if you're still speaking to me, come to the studio tonight. One last song. I almost didn't go, but curiosity or hope won. When I arrived, the lights were low. The console glowed softly, and there was a microphone set up in the booth. He handed me headphones. Sing it with me. What is this? Our story, he said simply. The messy version. He hit play. The track started, gentle piano, the sound of rain in the background. My voice joined his in harmony, hesitant at first, then steady. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And when the last note faded, he looked at me through the glass, eyes wet, smile trembling. Maybe this was what forgiveness sounded like, not silence, but music made from broken pieces. The studio smelled like memory-warm wood, faint coffee, and something electric in the air that only existed between us. After the last note faded, silence filled the room, thick and alive. I stood there, hands still trembling from the headphones, heart pounding like a drum that refused to quiet. Evan didn't move. He just watched me through the glass, like he was afraid I'd vanish if he blinked. When I stepped out of the booth, he whispered, That's it. What? The ending I've been chasing for 3 years. I shook my head. Evan, this isn't a song. It's our mess. He smiled soft, a little sad. Then let's make it beautiful. Weeks passed. The gossip storm eventually burned itself out, replaced by newer scandals, flashier headlines. But our little world kept spinning quietly beneath it all. Liam started preschool. Evan showed up every morning to walk him to the gate, his hand steady around that tiny one. Sometimes, people whispered, Phones came up, but Evan never flinched. He'd look them in the eye, smile, and keep walking. He was learning how to exist in the open one day at a time. So was I. One evening, after dinner, Evan sat at the piano in my living room, fingers drifting across the keys. Liam sat beside him, hitting random notes, giggling every time a sound echoed. I leaned in the doorway, watching. The light from the lamp bathed them both in gold. Liam looked up. "Play the happy one again." Evan laughed. "There's more than one happy one, bud." "No, the one you wrote for Papa." My heart stopped. Evan glanced at me, eyes warm. "You mean this one?" He played the opening chords of the song we'd recorded, the one about forgiveness, about love surviving the wreckage. Liam hummed along, slightly off-key, and I couldn't help smiling through the ache in my chest. When the song ended, Evan looked over his shoulder at me. "You okay?" I nodded, blinking back tears. "Yeah, I just never thought we'd get here." He stood, crossing the room until he was close enough to touch. "Neither did I." The air between us pulsed with everything we'd left unsaid. "Evan," I murmured, "I don't want to go back to what we were." "I don't either," he said. "I want something better." He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from my forehead. This time, no secrets, no running. And when he kissed me, it wasn't desperate like before. It was quiet, steady. Like he finally understood that love doesn't need an audience, it just needs truth. Months passed. The three of us built something small but strong: breakfasts in pajamas, music spilling from every room, the chaos of toys underfoot. Evan learned how to braid hair on Liam's stuffed animals. "Practice for real life," he said. I learned how to let someone help carry the weight. We weren't perfect. Some days he'd get lost in work again, trapped in his studio for hours. Some days I'd retreat into old fears. But each night he came home, and each morning I let him. Love, I realized, wasn't fireworks or tragedy. It was the choice to stay again and again. One afternoon, I got a call from his manager. "There's an award show next week," she said. "Evan wants you to come." I laughed. "That's not my world anymore." "It is if you want it to be," she replied. When I told Evan, he just smiled. "I want you there. Both of you." So a week later, I found myself in a rented tux, standing beside him on the red carpet, cameras flashing like lightning. Liam clutched my hand, fascinated by the noise and lights. Reporters shouted questions. Evan answered with calm grace. When someone asked about his family, he didn't hesitate. He looked straight at me, then at Liam, and said, "They're my greatest hit." The crowd laughed, but I saw the truth in his eyes, quiet, unwavering. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a secret. After the show, we slipped away to the rooftop, the same kind of view where everything had started. Los Angeles glimmered below us, endless and alive. Evan stood at the edge, hands in his pockets, tie loose, hair tousled by the wind. "Deja vu?" I asked. He chuckled. "Only this time you're not running. Not planning to." He turned to me, eyes soft. "Noah, I know I can't rewrite the past. But if you'll let me, I want to build the rest of it with you." I stared at him, the city lights reflecting in his eyes, the same eyes Liam had, the same ones I'd fallen into years ago. "You already are," I said quietly. And when he reached for my hand, I took it. That summer, Evan's new album dropped. It was called Home. The cover was simple, a photograph of 3 pairs of hands. His, mine, and Liam's. The critics called it his most vulnerable work, his most human. They didn't know the half of it. One of the tracks, Blue Eyes, went viral. Listeners said it felt like a confession. For me, it felt like a promise. There was a line in it that only we understood. If love survives the silence, maybe it was music all along. Life settled into something I never thought we'd have, not perfect, but peaceful. We moved into a small house near the ocean. Evan built a studio out back, soundproofed but with big windows so he could see Liam playing in the yard. I started writing again, not for fame, just for joy. Some mornings, I'd wake to find Evan asleep at the piano, sheet music scattered around him, sunlight creeping across his face. I'd make coffee, drape a blanket over his shoulders, and think this is what it means to come home. One night, as waves crashed softly beyond the window, Evan lay beside me, tracing lazy circles on my arm. You know, he whispered, for years I thought love had to hurt to be real. And now? I asked. He smiled. Now I know it just has to stay. I turned toward him. I never stopped loving you. I just stopped believing we could survive it. He kissed my forehead. We did. Barely. But we did. Months later, we released our duet, The One, from that night in the studio. It wasn't marketed as a love song. It wasn't labeled gay or tragic. It was just ours. The video showed nothing but light streaming through rain, fingers on piano keys, a child's laughter in the background. No faces, no names, just sound. People called it healing. To us, it was living proof that love doesn't need to be loud to matter. A year passed. On the morning of Liam's 4th birthday, we took him to the park. He ran ahead, chasing birds, his laughter spilling through the air like a melody. Evan watched him, then glanced at me. You know what I realized? What? I used to think the best songs came from heartbreak. I smiled. And now I think they come from home. He slipped his hand into mine, sunlight gleaming off the ring on his finger, simple, silver, understated. We'd exchanged them quietly months ago, just us, no cameras. I never thanked you, he said softly. For what? For not giving up on me, even when I gave you every reason to. I looked at him, at the man who'd once been a headline and was now just my heart in human form. I didn't do it for you, I said. I did it for us. Liam came running back, arms wide, holding a dandelion. Make a wish, he said. Evan crouched down, smiling. You first, buddy. Liam closed his eyes, blue seeds scattering into the sky. I wished for more pancakes, he declared proudly. We laughed. Then Evan looked at me. Your turn. I stared at the little white fluff floating away, and for once, I didn't need to wish for anything. I already had it, the chaos, the calm, the second chance that shouldn't have existed but somehow did. Still, I whispered something only the wind could hear. When I opened my eyes, Evan was watching me. What did you wish for? I smiled. Nothing. I just said thank you. He leaned in, forehead resting against mine. For what? For finding me again. That evening, we sat on the porch as the sun went down. Liam asleep inside, the world bathed in gold. Evan strummed his guitar, humming softly. You ever think about that night? He asked. The party? Yeah. How one stupid kiss changed everything. I laughed quietly. I used to hate that night. Now I think it saved us. He nodded. Me too. Then he stopped playing, looked at me seriously. If you could go back, would you still run? I thought about it, really thought. And then I said, maybe. Because if I hadn't, you never would have learned how to find me. He smiled, a little choked. You're cruel. You love it. I do, he admitted. The sky turned pink, then violet. The waves whispered below. And for the first time in years, there was nothing left between us but peace. When the first stars appeared, Evan whispered, You know, I've been working on a new song. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's called Forever Isn't a Promise. I raised a brow. That's depressing. He grinned. Not really. It's about how forever isn't something you say, it's something you choose. Every day. I tilted my head. You gonna let me hear it? Only if you sing it with me. Always, I said. And when he kissed me slow, sure, infinite, I realized that maybe forever wasn't a promise after all. It was a practice, a heartbeat, a song that never ends. The world would move on as it always does. But in a small house by the sea, music still filled the rooms. And if you listened closely enough, you could hear it, the sound of two men who almost lost everything and finally learned how to stay. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.